Hey everybody, Ryan here with Ray's Latest, and today we're going to jump into just a few things. First, we're going to talk about Cole Wilcox. Kind of no surprise here. The Rays decided to trade him to the Seattle Mariners for cash considerations, which is the third player that the Rays have traded for or traded for cash considerations this week. And it's kind of no-brainer. Everybody kind of saw it coming. We DFA'd him earlier in the week, and kind of just being able to get something out of him cash wise was good for him. And I think him going to Seattle is going to be a good career move. I think that the Mariners have kind of had a proven track record of being able to develop guys kind of the same way the Rays do. But I think Wilcox just didn't really stick in the Rays farm system. I mean, he had a 3.71 ERA over 34 games in AAA this season, and he kind of cracked the big league roster for a little bit there, and just kind of didn't really do much. He was on the IL after being activated. He was DFA'd. So he is also the last player remaining in that 2020 Blake Snell trade to come over from the Padres, where we got Luis Patino, Francisco Mejia, and Blake Hunt as well, along with Wilcox. So I think that the trade, I think everybody kind of saw it coming. Maybe not a trade, but he was DFA'd, and it was kind of just that weird question of, are we thinking about going back for him to re-sign him again, pick him up off the waivers once he clears? So he does have plenty of options. So I'm curious to see how the Mariners decide to use him. He could be a really good depth piece. We kind of saw him move to the back end, middle end of the bullpen kind of later in the season, because he started out as a starter and he kind of struggled, especially in the minor league level. And that move to the bullpen kind of helped him, I think, ERA wise and statistics wise. I think it was just a good move for him. And I think his stuff plays better in short stints. So I'm curious to see how the Mariners decide to use him, if they try to put him back in that starting role or kind of keep him in the bullpen towards the back end. He's got plenty of options as well. So he can go up and down. He's not kind of stuck on a big league roster and going to have to be DFA'd to be able to move him. So I like that trade from the Mariners' perspective. I really do. I think you get him for cheap. He's on a league minimum salary. So I think from a Mariners perspective, I think it's really good. And from a Rays perspective, we are trying to make room on our 40-man. So just having to get rid of some of those players is not a bad idea. And him having to be on the chopping block, it's just the business how it is. So I'm curious to see how the Mariners use him. And also tomorrow, Thursday, is the deadline to exercise options on players, as well as the IL is abolished for the offseason. So there's obviously the two main questions. Brandon Lau and Pete Fairbanks are both on club options that are being able to be picked up tomorrow. So I'm very, very curious to see where Neander goes with this. I think he's going to exercise both club options, in my opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of just chose one or the other. And when I mean that, I mean maybe Fairbanks or Lau is involved in a trade here in the near future, which I think that would be more leaning towards a Fairbanks trade than a Lau trade, in my opinion. I think Lau's kind of a staple at second base, and I don't think you can really get any better player at second base for the price tag that you're getting him for right now at $11.5 million. So I think Brandon Lau is definitely going to be re-signed, in my opinion, tomorrow, and I think that Fairbanks will also be signed. But $11 million for a reliever for Tampa is a lot of money, and I think Neander knows that, and I think the entire front office knows that. So I also would not be surprised if they sign him for the club option and then trade him, and kind of get that 11 million off of the cap space. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Fairbanks get moved. And the reason why I say this is because I personally I do think the $11 million is a kind of a hefty price tag for a guy that's just not an absolute elite nails closer. I mean, I think he's very, very good, and I think his stuff plays well. I think the consistency aspect from what we've seen from him over the last couple seasons, he's trended upwards. I think last season was his best season, in my opinion. It was the career high in saves. He had 27. He had 32 save opportunities this year, converted 27, blew 5. But I think that from a perspective of a Neander perspective in the front office, the money's not there to be able to get a lot of good players. And it's always been that way. And that's just something that as a Rays fan you have to accept. With the new ownership, hopefully we'll see some possible uptick in the amount of money that he's able to use. But I do believe the $11 million is a kind of a hefty price tag for him. But I wouldn't be opposed to exercising the club option and having him for another year. Because I think if he keeps up with the same trend that he's kind of been on every season, he's kind of just getting better and better and better. I don't think we'd be able to afford him after this season. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a sign and then halfway through the year, right before the trade deadline, trade him. Especially if he's doing well, kind of just to get that good haul back for him. But I also wouldn't be surprised at all if I saw it happen now. I think Lau, like I said, is going to be a staple. I think he's staying. I think that club option will be exercised. I do think Fairbanks sticks around, but as I'm saying, I would not be surprised if he is traded in the offseason heading into the season. And Walls also has an option that we could pay him $2.45 million this year, or pay the $50,000 buyout, and he goes to arbitration. Which I do think that might be the better route for a Rays perspective, for him going to arbitration, and seeing if you can kind of get that price tag down a little bit. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. I do think we'll see all three of those players in a Rays uniform next season, but I would not be surprised if I saw a notification pop up on my phone that Fairbanks was traded. And it would hurt me deep down, it really would, but I understand and I completely get it from a front office perspective that you have to move players, especially when you can't afford to pay them. You have to move them to get something out of them. And that's what we saw in a Blake Snell trade. I mean, you get 4 players for Blake Snell. You're only paying him, it was $10 million a year beforehand. He's getting paid almost triple that now. So it's like the Rays know that they can't afford these guys, and they're just trying to milk as much of their talent and time that they can out of them. And I think we're going to see that with Junior Caminero coming up here soon also. And maybe even Lau, if he keeps performing the way he is, he might get outpriced too. So it's something that hurts as a Rays fan to have to deal with that every single time. But I get it. I understand from that perspective. And I've seen Fairbanks kind of been targeted towards maybe a Giants trade, which I see people talking about the Giants having a struggling bullpen, which at times it was, but they had the 4th best bullpen ERA wise in Major League Baseball last season. They had a 3.48 team bullpen ERA, which is really good from an entire bullpen perspective. So I'm curious to kind of see what maybe a haul you could get from them. I think they do have decent prospects in a couple of major leaguers that I wouldn't mind picking up in a situation like that. And they can more than afford paying him the $11 million a year. That wouldn't be a problem really for any team to pick up that contract there. So I'm kind of curious to see maybe a possible landing spot for him. I've seen targets to Mets for him as well. But Gerber also just got picked up, was traded to the Mets yesterday. So I think there's plenty of landing spots for him if they do decide to go the trade route. And I'm curious to see what kind of possible prospect hauls you can get for him. But it's just one of those things we're going to have to wait and see, especially tomorrow, seeing if they actually do exercise the option. Then we'll truly know. But I do think all 3 of those players, Walls, Lau, and Fairbanks, will all get those club options exercised. And in other news, the spring training schedule for 2026 came out. It starts a little early this year because of the World Baseball Classic, which is March 5th through the 17th of this next spring. So the spring training schedule has kind of gotten pushed up a little bit. So they start February 21st this year, and then they end March 24th. Start against the Braves, end against the Braves. And another cool little thing to the Netherlands national team for the World Baseball Classic will be playing the Rays in a spring training exhibition this year too. So that's kind of you kind of see that the Red Sox always play Northeastern University every year. So it's kind of cool to have that kind of outside Major League Baseball game in there for spring training, because at the end of the day, it is just spring training. And it's cool to see. I always love watching Northeastern compete against the Red Sox, even though they're not really fully playing their starting nine. But it's just fun to see, kind of just playing different competition and seeing all these different types of players. So I'm excited for that. The Rays do play one game at Steinbrenner this spring, so that'd be kind of funny, a little homecoming game back for their stadium last season. But the Rays do start the first 9 games this year on the road, with a nice homecoming set up for April 6th in the Trop. So I'm curious to kind of see what that roster is going to look like come spring training time. I think it's going to not necessarily be much different from a hitting perspective and a starting pitching perspective, but I think from a bullpen perspective, we could see a little switch up in there. So I'm kind of curious to see how that roster is going to look come spring training time, and I'm also really excited for the World Baseball Classic this year. You guys let me know any possible locations you would like to see, or kind of for Fairbanks, or possibly any kind of prospect or major league player haul back for him. Let me know down in the comments anything you want me to talk about, or let me know if you guys have any opinions you want expressed. Thank you. Have a good one.